The galaxy was falling apart. The stars, once shining brightly with promise and life, now only served as witnesses to a new and terrifying reality. The Zorathians, an alien race feared for their sheer power and ruthless efficiency, had begun their war across the galaxy. For years, they had quietly expanded their empire, but now they were ready to strike with full force. They were unstoppable, and entire worlds were falling before them like dominoes. Planets that had once been centers of life and trade now lay in ruins, their cities reduced to rubble, their populations devastated. The Zorathians showed no mercy, and no one seemed able to stop them. Civilizations that had once thrived were now just memories, their people scattered or wiped out entirely. With each world they conquered, the Zorathians grew stronger, and the hope of the galaxy's survival grew dimmer. It wasn't long before the survivors of these shattered worlds realized the truth. Their fate was sealed unless something, or someone, intervened. For years, they had relied on their allies, the galactic coalition that had stood together for peace and prosperity. But now, when the call for help went out, their allies had failed to respond. The powerful fleets that had once roamed the stars in defense of peace were nowhere to be found. The alliances that had existed for centuries seemed to be falling apart under the weight of fear. Desperation set in. Leaders of dying worlds sent out their final messages across the stars, hoping against hope that someone would hear them. Entire civilizations, their worlds ravaged, joined their voices in the dark expanse of space, crying out for help. "Please, someone, anyone, help us," was the message that echoed through the galaxy. But the silence that followed was deafening. It seemed that no one would come. Except one. Earth, a small, seemingly insignificant planet located on the edge of the galaxy, had always been left out of the galactic struggles. The people of Earth had no interest in the politics of the stars. They had built their own world in isolation, focusing on their own problems, their own struggles. Earth had never been part of the Galactic Council, nor had they ever been involved in the wars that shaped the fate of other worlds. To the other races, Earth was a quiet, little world with no influence. But now, for the first time, Earth had received a message, a plea for help, a cry for mercy. The leaders of Earth were stunned when the message arrived. At first, they thought it was some kind of trick. They had never been involved in galactic matters, and no one had ever asked for their help before. Why now? Why them? And more importantly, did they have the strength to answer? The leaders gathered in secret, debating what to do. The situation was dire. They could ignore the call and carry on with their lives, as they had always done. But the image of dying worlds, of burning cities and desperate people, haunted their thoughts. The cries for help felt real. Humanity, small and untested as it was, had always prided itself on its ability to adapt, to survive, and to stand up for what was right. "We have to help them," said General James Harris, a respected military leader. He was one of the few who saw the potential of Earth's people, who believed that their strength, though unseen, was enough to face this new threat. "We may not have the numbers or the technology, but we have something that the Zorathians don't: heart." There was silence in the room. Everyone knew what that meant. If they answered the call, they would be stepping into a war unlike anything they had ever seen. They would be fighting against an enemy that could crush them with a flick of their finger. But General Harris was right. Earth had something that the Zorathians didn't account for: hope. The decision was made. Earth would answer the call. Across the world, the message went out. Governments, scientists, engineers, and civilians all came together. This wasn't a war of politics or power. This was about survival. This was about helping those who could no longer help themselves. Earth's leaders knew they had no choice. They couldn't let the galaxy fall to the Zorathians. They couldn't let the innocent suffer while the galaxy's most powerful races did nothing. With little time to prepare, Earth began to mobilize. Scientists worked tirelessly to advance their technology, pulling together every resource they could. Engineers and military experts began to design new weapons and defensive systems. Civilians trained in new roles, learning to adapt to the demands of war. It was an all-out effort, and Earth had no other option but to give it everything they had. As the weeks passed, a sense of unity began to grow. People who had never thought of themselves as part of something larger than their own nations now found themselves working together for a common cause. The fear of the unknown began to fade as a sense of determination took its place. Earth wasn't just going to survive this fight. They were going to win. But the Zorathians, they knew, were coming. And they weren't going to stop until every last one of Earth's people was either dead or enslaved. Earth's answer to the call was only the beginning of a long and difficult war, a war that would test everything they had. But Earth was ready. The silence of space was heavy as Earth's leaders huddled in their secret meeting rooms, staring at the desperate message from the galaxy. A plea for help from civilizations across the stars, sent to the one planet that had never been involved in their galactic politics. For years, Earth had stood alone, its people focused on their own struggles. The idea of a war in distant corners of the galaxy seemed far removed from their day-to-day lives. But now, Earth had become the last hope for countless worlds. The message had come from every corner of the galaxy. Some were from worlds already destroyed, their civilizations reduced to ashes. Others were from planets that were still fighting, their people holding on by the thinnest of threads. The Zorathians were not just invaders, they were merciless, and their goal was nothing short of total destruction. Entire species had been wiped out, and now the survivors turned their eyes to Earth. The leaders of Earth knew they couldn't ignore the call. The question was no longer about whether they could fight, but if they had enough time to prepare. The Zorathians were relentless, and each day they waited, more worlds fell. General Harris, who had once served in the military, had been a vocal advocate for Earth's involvement, but many others still hesitated. Could Earth, with its limited resources and lack of experience, truly stand against the might of the Zorathian Empire? "Are we really ready for this?" asked President Emily Collins, her voice thick with concern. She was the first to speak since the message had arrived. "We have no allies, no battle-hardened soldiers. We're a small, young species compared to the rest of the galaxy." "I agree," said Admiral Liu, a senior military officer. "We've never faced anything like this before. Our technology is far behind the Zorathians. How can we possibly win?" The room fell silent. Earth's leadership was at a crossroads. They could ignore the call for help, stay safe in their isolation, and continue life as usual. But deep down, they knew they couldn't. The thought of sitting idly by while the rest of the galaxy was destroyed didn't sit well with anyone. No matter how unprepared they were, humanity could not abandon the people of the galaxy. General Harris stood up, his posture tall and firm, his voice steady. "This is our moment," he said. "We may not have the strength the Zorathians have, but we have something they don't. Our determination, our ingenuity, and our willingness to fight for what's right. That's what sets us apart." The room quieted once again. The general's words were stirring, but the doubts remained. Could humanity really overcome an enemy so powerful, so ruthless? Could they truly rise to the challenge when every civilization they knew had fallen before the Zorathian onslaught? "We can," Harris continued, his voice growing stronger. "We've done it before. Look at the history of Earth. We've faced wars, disasters, and challenges that should have wiped us out, but we're still here. We've always found a way to survive. And this time, we'll find a way to win." There was a long pause as the leaders looked at each other. Finally, President Collins stood. "I agree," she said, her voice resolute. "We won't turn our backs on those who need us. Earth has always been a place of resilience and strength. It's time we show the galaxy what humanity can do." A sense of unity began to build. The decision was made. Earth would answer the call. The world's leaders sent out a signal to the galaxy, informing the survivors that Earth was coming to help. It was the first step in a long journey, but it was a start. The message spread across the planet, reaching every corner. The people of Earth, from every country, every background, stood ready to do their part. In the days that followed, the people of Earth began to rally. Military forces began to train, scientists worked around the clock to improve technology, and engineers scrambled to build the weapons and defenses that could stand up to the Zorathians. Earth wasn't just going to fight for itself. They were going to fight for the entire galaxy. The world's media buzzed with excitement, and at the same time, fear. People weren't sure what to expect. Many had never even seen a spaceship before, let alone a battle in space. But the call had been made. Earth had been given a chance to show its worth, and the people knew they couldn't back down. In every city, in every home, Earth's citizens joined together, united by one purpose: to protect those who could not protect themselves. It didn't matter what their past was, or how small they felt. Now, they were part of something much bigger. The world was changing before their eyes. Scientists and engineers worked on weapons and shields, taking designs from the few scraps of alien technology they could find. These designs were old and imperfect, but they had potential. Earth had never been part of the galactic war machine, but now, they would have to become something they never thought they could be: a force to be reckoned with. The people of Earth knew one thing for sure: if the galaxy was to survive, they had no choice but to face the Zorathians head-on. Earth had been chosen to answer the call. And despite the odds, humanity would not let the galaxy fall without a fight. The decision had been made. Earth would help the galaxy, no matter the cost. But there was one problem. They weren't ready. Their technology was far behind that of the Zorathians, and they had no military experience in galactic warfare. Despite this, humanity's resolve was clear. They would prepare, and they would do it quickly. In every corner of the world, the first signs of change began. The global leaders held meetings, working together as they never had before. Earth's various governments, once focused on their own borders, now found themselves united by a single purpose: survival. The world's best scientists and engineers were called to action, and soon they gathered in research facilities around the globe, working around the clock to develop the weapons and technology they would need. At the heart of Earth's effort was a new kind of teamwork. Scientists from every country worked together, sharing knowledge and ideas. Old rivalries melted away as people realized that their success depended on collaboration. The human mind, inventive and determined, began to push forward at a pace never seen before. The war, though distant, became a common thread that tied humanity together. The first priority was to develop shields strong enough to withstand Zorathian weaponry. The scientists had never seen anything like the energy blasts the Zorathians used, but they were determined to try. They studied alien technology from past encounters, analyzing what little they could recover from destroyed enemy ships. Slowly, they began to make breakthroughs. The first generation of shields was not perfect, but it was a start. They would improve as time went on. Meanwhile, military leaders worked tirelessly to train soldiers. Earth's armies had been trained for conventional wars, not battles with invincible invaders. So new strategies were devised. General Harris was put in charge of Earth's military training. He knew that the fight ahead would not be won by strength alone. It would require clever tactics, a deep understanding of the enemy's methods, and the courage to fight when all seemed lost. The training was intense. Soldiers practiced mock battles, simulations of what they might face when the Zorathians arrived. They learned how to fight not just on Earth's terrain, but in space, on planets with strange atmospheres, and on ships that could travel faster than light. It was all new, but the soldiers pushed through. They had no choice. The fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. Back in the labs, engineers worked to develop Earth's first weapons designed for space combat. They used whatever materials they had: old satellites, damaged spacecraft, and parts of the few alien weapons they had been able to reverse engineer. They worked together in teams, building energy cannons, blasters, and missiles that could penetrate the Zorathians' armor. It was a race against time, and every minute counted. In the largest military base in the United States, Commander Lisa Grant watched over the training of Earth's first space fleet. The ships were crude compared to the Zorathians' sleek, powerful vessels, but they were all they had. The first few ships were simple transports, but they were being retrofitted with weapons and shields. Some were small, fast, and agile, designed for hit-and-run tactics. Others were larger and more heavily armed, meant to serve as the backbone of Earth's fleet. Lisa stood on the command deck of one of the ships, watching as her team prepared for their first real mission. She wasn't sure how the crew would perform under fire, but she knew they had something special, something the Zorathians didn't expect. Hope. "We can't afford to lose," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. Not this time. The atmosphere was tense, but it was also filled with determination. Earth's people, despite the long odds, had never been more united. They knew they were small and inexperienced, but they also knew they had something the Zorathians had never encountered: the human will to survive. At the same time, civilians across the world were doing their part. Workers in factories and labs volunteered their time, building equipment, manufacturing supplies, and preparing the resources Earth's military would need. The world's engineers, factory workers, and even students joined the effort, putting aside their daily lives to contribute to the war effort. It was all hands on deck. Everyone had a role to play. The media, which had once focused on entertainment, now shifted its focus to the preparations for war. News reports showed how people across the globe were coming together, how scientists were discovering new technologies, and how soldiers were training for a battle that could change the course of history. There was fear, yes, but there was also pride. Earth was no longer just a quiet world. It was becoming a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. The final stage of preparation was to build a command center, a place where Earth's leaders and military commanders could coordinate their efforts. It would be located underground to protect it from any potential attack. The command center was built quickly, with the best minds on Earth contributing to its design. It would serve as the brain of Earth's military operations, a place where strategies were developed and missions were planned. As the days passed, Earth's preparations grew stronger. More ships were built, more soldiers trained, and more weapons developed. Earth's military forces were not yet ready to face the Zorathians head-on, but they were preparing as fast as possible. There was no turning back now. Soon, Earth would have to face the enemy. The clock was ticking, and they couldn't afford to fail. But the people of Earth had something that the Zorathians had never accounted for: the drive to fight, the courage to stand firm, and the willingness to do whatever it took to protect their world and the galaxy. After months of preparation, Earth was as ready as it could be. The military had trained hard, technology had improved, and the people of the planet stood united in the face of the unknown. But nothing could truly prepare them for the reality of battle. The Zorathians were ruthless and cunning. The time had come for Earth to prove that it could stand up to the threat that loomed on the horizon. It was the dead of night when the alarm sounded. The first wave of Zorathian ships had entered Earth's solar system. There was no time to waste. General Harris stood in front of a large screen in the command center, his eyes scanning the data as it streamed in. The Zorathians were fast, their ships appearing almost out of nowhere, their presence in the system unmistakable. They weren't waiting for Earth's forces to get ready. They had come to conquer. "We have to move now," Harris said, his voice steady but urgent. "All fleets, launch immediately. No hesitations." Across the globe, the military units that had spent months training for this moment were now coming to life. Fighter jets took off from bases, and transport ships lifted into space, carrying soldiers and supplies. The space fleet, with all its retrofitted ships, was ready to meet the Zorathian threat head-on. Commander Lisa Grant watched from her ship as the fleet gathered in formation, her hand steady on the controls. She had been a part of this mission from the beginning. And now, it was time to put everything into action. "It's time," she whispered to herself. Her ship, one of Earth's finest creations, was still new to space combat, but it was strong and equipped with everything they had learned in such a short time. She had faith in her crew, in the soldiers who had trained alongside her. This was Earth's first strike against the Zorathian Empire. The moment they entered the battlefield, the enormity of the task became clear. Zorathian ships, sleek and powerful, moved in perfect unison. Their weapons were more advanced, their ships faster, but Earth's fleet was determined. They fought with a passion that the Zorathians had not anticipated. "Stay close," Lisa ordered over the comms, her voice cool but firm. "This is a team effort. We may be outmatched, but we're not out of the fight." The first shots rang out as Earth's ships fired their energy cannons. The blasts collided with Zorathian shields, sending shockwaves through space. Earth's new weapons were strong, but the Zorathians' defenses were nearly impenetrable. It was clear that this battle would not be easy. Meanwhile, on the ground, Earth's soldiers were engaging in their own fight. They had prepared for a variety of scenarios, but they had never expected the Zorathians to come so fast. Cities around the world were now under attack. Alien forces landed, their technology far superior to anything Earth had, but the people of Earth did not falter. They fought with every ounce of strength, knowing that the survival of their world, and the entire galaxy, was at stake. Admiral Liu stood in the underground command center, watching the battle unfold. The situation was dire, but Earth's forces were holding their ground. They were no match for the Zorathians in terms of technology, but they had one thing the invaders didn't: heart. The people of Earth fought with everything they had, using clever tactics and never backing down. "Keep pushing," Liu said, rallying the troops with his words. "We've trained for this. We are ready." Back in space, the Zorathian ships closed in on Earth's fleet. Lisa's ship fired another blast, striking one of the enemy ships. It wasn't a direct hit, but the damage was enough to send the Zorathian vessel veering off course. The Earth fleet cheered. They had done something the Zorathians had not expected. They had landed a hit. "We can do this," Lisa called out over the comms. "Stay focused. We're making a dent." But the battle was far from over. As more Zorathian ships entered the system, the human fleet began to feel the pressure. Their shields, though powerful, were beginning to wear thin. One by one, Earth's ships were hit, and the loss of each one felt like a blow to the entire fleet. Yet they continued to press on, refusing to retreat. The Earth forces weren't giving up, no matter how hopeless things seemed. In every corner of the planet, soldiers and civilians worked together. Cities fought back with whatever they had. People who had never dreamed of holding a weapon now found themselves on the front lines, protecting their homes with everything they could. Back in space, Earth's fleet faced its toughest challenge yet. The Zorathians, realizing that humanity was not as weak as they had believed, began to fight harder. Their weapons were destructive, but Earth's people, with their drive and ingenuity, had found ways to outmaneuver them. The battle was fierce, but the tides were turning. Suddenly, Earth's communications received an unexpected message. The first Zorathian ship had been destroyed. It wasn't the whole fleet, but it was a start. The crew of Earth's ships had done the impossible. They had taken down one of the enemy's most advanced vessels. "We've got them on the run," shouted General Harris from the command center. "Keep fighting, and we'll show them that Earth isn't backing down." The battle continued, but the victory was clear. The Zorathians had underestimated the humans. Earth wasn't just a small planet at the edge of the galaxy. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the Zorathians would soon learn that humanity wasn't going to be so easily conquered. The battle was far from over, but something had changed. For the first time since the Zorathians' invasion, Earth's forces were no longer on the defensive. They had struck a blow to the enemy, and now they were fighting back with renewed determination. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity, and it showed. While their technology was far more advanced, the spirit of Earth's people was unmatched. The loss of one of their ships had shaken the invaders. The Zorathians were not accustomed to failure, especially from a species they had viewed as insignificant. Admiral Liu stood at the command center, watching the unfolding battle on the screen. His eyes were sharp, scanning the movements of the Zorathian fleet. Earth's forces had not won by brute strength alone. They had used clever tactics, exploiting every weakness they could find. It was the human way, finding a solution no one else could see and making it work against all odds. "Keep up the pressure," Liu ordered, his voice calm but commanding. "We're starting to turn the tide." In space, the human fleet pressed forward. The newly built ships, though not as fast or powerful as the Zorathians, were becoming more skilled in combat. The crew had learned from their first encounter, and they adapted quickly, using their environment to their advantage. Lysa Grant, commanding her ship, guided her crew through the chaos of battle with unwavering focus. "We've got them on the run," Lisa said over the comms, her voice steady as her ship dodged enemy fire. "Take them out one by one." As Earth's fleet continued to press forward, the Zorathians' once imposing force began to fragment. Their ships, once moving in perfect formation, now showed signs of confusion. They hadn't expected humanity to fight back with such tenacity. The Zorathians were powerful, but they lacked the same unity that Earth's forces shared. Meanwhile, on the ground, Earth's soldiers were engaging in their own fight. They had prepared for a variety of scenarios, but they had never expected the Zorathians to come so fast. Cities around the world were now under attack. Alien forces landed, their technology far superior to anything Earth had, but the people of Earth did not falter. They fought with every ounce of strength, knowing that the survival of their world, and the entire galaxy, was at stake. Admiral Liu stood in the underground command center, watching the battle unfold. The situation was dire, but Earth's forces were holding their ground. They were no match for the Zorathians in terms of technology, but they had one thing the invaders didn't: heart. The people of Earth fought with everything they had, using clever tactics and never backing down. "Keep pushing," Liu said, rallying the troops with his words. "We've trained for this. We are ready." Back in space, the Zorathian ships closed in on Earth's fleet. Lisa's ship fired another blast, striking one of the enemy ships. It wasn't a direct hit, but the damage was enough to send the Zorathian vessel veering off course. The Earth fleet cheered. They had done something the Zorathians had not expected. They had landed a hit. "We can do this," Lisa called out over the comms. "Stay focused. We're making a dent." But the battle was far from over. As more Zorathian ships entered the system, the human fleet began to feel the pressure. Their shields, though powerful, were beginning to wear thin. One by one, Earth's ships were hit, and the loss of each one felt like a blow to the entire fleet. Yet they continued to press on, refusing to retreat. The Earth forces weren't giving up, no matter how hopeless things seemed. In every corner of the planet, soldiers and civilians worked together. Cities fought back with whatever they had. People who had never dreamed of holding a weapon now found themselves on the front lines, protecting their homes with everything they could. Back in space, Earth's fleet faced its toughest challenge yet. The Zorathians, realizing that humanity was not as weak as they had believed, began to fight harder. Their weapons were destructive, but Earth's people, with their drive and ingenuity, had found ways to outmaneuver them. The battle was fierce, but the tides were turning. Suddenly, Earth's communications received an unexpected message. The first Zorathian ship had been destroyed. It wasn't the whole fleet, but it was a start. The crew of Earth's ships had done the impossible. They had taken down one of the enemy's most advanced vessels. "We've got them on the run," shouted General Harris from the command center. "Keep fighting, and we'll show them that Earth isn't backing down." The battle continued, but the victory was clear. The Zorathians had underestimated the humans. Earth wasn't just a small planet at the edge of the galaxy. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the Zorathians would soon learn that humanity wasn't going to be so easily conquered. The battle was far from over, but something had changed. For the first time since the Zorathians' invasion, Earth's forces were no longer on the defensive. They had struck a blow to the enemy, and now they were fighting back with renewed determination. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity, and it showed. While their technology was far more advanced, the spirit of Earth's people was unmatched. The loss of one of their ships had shaken the invaders. The Zorathians were not accustomed to failure, especially from a species they had viewed as insignificant. Admiral Liu stood at the command center, watching the unfolding battle on the screen. His eyes were sharp, scanning the movements of the Zorathian fleet. Earth's forces had not won by brute strength alone. They had used clever tactics, exploiting every weakness they could find. It was the human way, finding a solution no one else could see and making it work against all odds. "Keep up the pressure," Liu ordered, his voice calm but commanding. "We're starting to turn the tide." In space, the human fleet pressed forward. The newly built ships, though not as fast or powerful as the Zorathians, were becoming more skilled in combat. The crew had learned from their first encounter, and they adapted quickly, using their environment to their advantage. Lysa Grant, commanding her ship, guided her crew through the chaos of battle with unwavering focus. "We've got them on the run," Lisa said over the comms, her voice steady as her ship dodged enemy fire. "Take them out one by one." As Earth's fleet continued to press forward, the Zorathians' once imposing force began to fragment. Their ships, once moving in perfect formation, now showed signs of confusion. They hadn't expected humanity to fight back with such tenacity. The Zorathians were powerful, but they lacked the same unity that Earth's forces shared. "They won't give up," Liu muttered to himself. "They'll come back stronger, but so will we." The humans knew that they had to be ready. They had been given a moment to breathe, but this was not a time for rest. Every fleet, every soldier, every civilian had to prepare for the next wave. The Zorathians had tasted defeat, and they would not take it lightly. Back in space, the human fleet had regrouped. Lysa Grant stood at the command of her ship, her eyes focused on the holographic map that displayed the movements of the Zorathian forces. The enemy ships were massing at the edge of the solar system, and Earth's fleet was assembling for what would be their biggest battle yet. "We can do this," Lisa said to her crew. "They might have the numbers, but we've got something they don't. Unity. We're in this together." Her crew nodded, each person knowing that the fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Now the humans had to prove that they could hold their ground, no matter the odds. Meanwhile, on Earth, the preparations continued. Cities fortified their defenses, governments coordinated their efforts, and civilians did everything they could to support the military. Factories worked around the clock to produce more weapons, more ships, more supplies. The entire planet had rallied to the cause. Everyone, no matter their background, was part of the fight. In Africa, teams of engineers were working with the Driquians, learning to integrate their advanced technology into Earth's defense systems. The Driquians had shared their knowledge freely, and the collaboration between the two species was unlike anything Earth had seen before. Together, they were developing weapons that could challenge even the Zorathian war machines. "We have to finish what we started," General Harris said, addressing the leaders of the world in a broadcast. "This isn't just about Earth. It's about the future of the galaxy. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every civilization that values freedom. The Zorathians won't stop until they've conquered everything in their path. We can't let that happen." The speech resonated with people all over the world. It was a reminder of what was at stake, and it galvanized them to do whatever it took to protect their homes. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting for the survival of the entire galaxy. As Earth's forces prepared for the final push, the Zorathians made their move. Their massive fleet began to advance, closing in on Earth at a terrifying speed. The humans had no choice but to face them head-on. There would be no more retreats, no more holding back. The fate of their world and the future of the galaxy depended on this battle. Lisa Grant watched as the first wave of Zorathian ships appeared on the horizon. The battle was about to begin. "All units, prepare for engagement," she ordered, her voice steady despite the pressure. "This is it. We hold nothing back." The human fleet surged forward, engaging the Zorathians in a fierce and chaotic battle. The Zorathian ships were massive and powerful, but Earth's forces had learned from their past encounters. They were more coordinated, more precise, and they had the advantage of surprise. The Driquian technology had leveled the playing field, giving the humans the upper hand. Explosions lit up the sky as Earth's ships launched their weapons at the Zorathian fleet. The enemy ships fired back with devastating force, but the humans held their ground, firing back with everything they had. The energy weapons, developed with Driquian assistance, tore through the Zorathian shields, hitting their ships with devastating force. One by one, Zorathian ships began to fall, their once imposing armor crumpling under the relentless assault. The humans were fighting with everything they had, and it showed. They weren't just defending Earth, they were fighting for their homes, for their families, and for the future. "Keep pushing forward," Lisa commanded, her grip tightening on the controls. "We're not letting them get away this time." As the battle raged on, the humans pressed forward with unrelenting force. The Zorathians were on the defensive now, struggling to keep up with the overwhelming power of Earth's fleet. Their once impressive war machines were faltering, and the tide of battle had truly turned. But just when it seemed like victory was within their grasp, a new wave of Zorathian ships appeared. These ships were different, larger, faster, and more powerful. It was clear that the Zorathians had been holding something back, and now they were unleashing their full strength. "We've got company," Lisa said, her eyes narrowing as she saw the new ships appear on her radar. "Everyone, brace yourselves. This is going to get harder." The final push had begun, but the Zorathians were not going down without a fight. The battle would be even fiercer now, and Earth's forces would need to pull out every trick they had learned if they were going to win. The battle above Earth had reached its peak. Humanity's forces, having withstood the initial onslaught of the Zorathians, were now faced with their most powerful adversary yet. The new wave of Zorathian ships, massive and advanced, descended upon them like a storm. They were stronger, faster, and more deadly. It seemed like the humans might be outmatched once again. But Earth's people had proven time and time again that they would not go down without a fight. In the heart of the chaos, Admiral Liu watched from the command center, his fingers tapping nervously on the console. The battle had shifted in favor of the Zorathians, but he knew this was not the end. Earth's forces had learned to adapt, and the new weapons provided by the Driquians had made them a formidable force. "Hold steady," Liu said to his officers. "We're not finished yet. They may have the numbers, but we have something they don't. The will to fight." His words echoed through the command center. The officers nodded in agreement, their eyes reflecting the same determination. Humanity had faced countless obstacles, and each time, they had found a way to rise above them. This time would be no different. On the battlefield, Lisa Grant's ship tore through space, her crew fighting with everything they had. The Zorathian ships had launched a ferocious counterattack, but the humans were responding with equal force. The new energy weapons, combined with Earth's unique tactics, were proving to be effective. Each shot that hit a Zorathian ship seemed to send a ripple of hope through the human fleet. "Keep firing," Lisa shouted, her voice steady despite the rising intensity of the battle. "We can do this. We've come this far, and we're not backing down now." Her crew worked in perfect synchronization, their movements a well-practiced dance as they fired their weapons and dodged incoming fire. The Zorathians were beginning to show signs of weakness. Their once unshakable formations were starting to break apart, and the massive ships that had seemed so invincible were now faltering under the relentless assault. But just as the humans thought victory was within their grasp, the Zorathians unleashed their final weapon, a massive ship that dwarfed the others. It was a doomsday device, capable of destroying entire planets with a single strike. The sight of the ship sent a chill down Lisa's spine. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, a symbol of the Zorathians' desperation. They had bet everything on this one final weapon. "We need to take it down," Lisa said, her voice filled with urgency. "If that thing gets a shot off, it could destroy us all. We can't let them win." The human fleet rallied around her command, each ship maneuvering with precision to target the massive Zorathian doomsday ship. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity's resilience and their ability to think on their feet. They had thrown everything they had into this final assault, but the humans weren't backing down. Lisa's ship led the charge, firing everything they had at the giant vessel. The Zorathian ship fired back, its weapons capable of vaporizing smaller ships with a single shot, but the humans were swift and agile, dodging and weaving between the massive blasts. Their precision and coordination were unmatched, a testament to the hard work and unity that had defined humanity's resistance. "We can't let them keep firing," Lisa said, her eyes narrowing. "Focus all fire on their engines. If we take out their propulsion system, they won't be able to move." With all their might, the human ships focused their attacks on the Zorathian doomsday ship's engine. The explosions rocked the ship, and slowly its movements began to falter. The Zorathians were struggling to maintain control. As the final blow landed, the doomsday ship erupted in a massive explosion, its sheer power shaking the fabric of space itself. The remaining Zorathian fleet, now without their ultimate weapon, began to retreat in disarray. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the Zorathian ships scatter. The battle had been long and brutal, but Earth had won. They had proven that no matter the odds, humanity would never give up. "We did it," Lisa whispered, a sense of relief washing over her. She looked around at her crew, their faces filled with exhaustion, but also with the pride of knowing they had saved their home. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People gathered in the streets, cheering and celebrating the end of the war. Earth had fought back against an alien empire, and against all odds, they had won. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity, and they had paid the price. Admiral Liu stood on the balcony of the command center, gazing out over the planet. The victory was hard-earned, but it was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Earth had faced its darkest hour and emerged victorious. The battle for Earth had been won, but the war had changed humanity forever. No longer was Earth a quiet, isolated planet in the far reaches of the galaxy. Now, Earth had made its mark. They had shown the universe that they were not to be underestimated. And as long as humanity had the will to fight, there was no force that could stop them. "Humanity's time has come," Liu thought, a small smile tugging at his lips. "And we will stand tall, no matter what the future brings."